My name's Jeff St Laurent. This is the Live Tuesday call, and we are back at it again, moving forward as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. I'm excited to talk about the topic today, and that's beating the odds to transition to full-time. And, at the end of the day, we want to do full-time. I got a lot of coaching clients that I'm working with, my mentoring clients, in groups and one-on-one, and everyone's just, they want to coach so badly, and there's a lot of things that they're working up against, if you will, the odds. And today I'm just going to kind of just address some of those things and just give you some practical things to keep you in the game, because at the end of the day, we got to keep you in the game if you're ever going to want to make this full time. Before I get rolling on that, I do record all my Tuesday calls. I put them in my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So go to sellingcoaching.com, check out the university. You got a lot of fantastic resources there. And speaking of resources, right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, I have a great resource called the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. So it's an audio and accompanied PDF resource for you. So it's a very comprehensive resource. I definitely want you to check that out. And when you enter your name and email for that guide, not only will you get that, but it's also going to put you into my email community. So you'll receive emails from me on a weekly basis. And I want you there not only so you can receive the great information that I share each week, but also so you can start to see how I utilize email and stay in front of my audience and communicate with them, because that is a vital piece of what you do within your business. And lastly, before we get rolling today, if you're in a position where you need some help with your business, consider hiring me as your mentor coach. Whether it's you're in a place where you're getting started and you want to get frustrated, or maybe you're there, maybe you've been trying it and you're just not getting any traction by yourself. One of the best things I did early on, and still do even as of today at this stage of my business, is I work with my coaches, but they're mentor coaches. And it's one of the best things I've ever done and still do. So if you're interested in learning more about that, or you might be in that position and the timing's right, go to sellingcoaching.com. On the Work With Me page, at the bottom, there's a form. Fill that out. That will come to me. I'll follow up. We can create a relaxed conversation, and we can discuss and kind of figure out what's best for you and go from there. With that being said, I want to roll on today's topic, like I said, and that's beating the odds to transition to full-time. And, when I talk about these odds, these are just the things that, statistically hold people back from being successful in their business or having a business in general. And I'll say it like this: the odds are not in our favor. And this isn't just with entrepreneurship. This is just in everything. Like, the odds are not in our favor in terms of being successful at anything. And the reason why is because there's too many things that could go wrong. And then if you look at all the things that we've got to work against in any category, especially entrepreneurship, then there's just the space between our two ears, our mindset and the way we think. And that in and of itself, I always say, is one of the biggest challenges of entrepreneurship. So if we're talking about, beating these odds and these statistics that say, like, and again, I always like to say, I'll give statistics and I'm like, oh, these are just made up statistics. And I wrote an email the other day and I'm like, yeah, these are, 97+% of people. I was talking about some group coaching with some people, and I said 97% plus people, won't ever move forward and do a program. I'm helping some of my mentor coaching clients right now write a book. We're working that into their marketing system, and I'm helping them take them through the process of writing a book, because I wrote mine in 2009. And so it's a great marketing tool as well, and credibility tool. And so as we work through that, and I'd say the same thing, everyone's got a book in them, but 97+% of the people that want to write a book never write a book, and there's this barrier that we must work up against. And I'll tell you what, it's not impossible to get to the other side, but yet I want to kind of break it down a little bit today to kind of just hopefully make it easier for you, because at the end of the day, there's a few things that we've got to be consistent with. And no matter what's going on in our outside of our world, if we can remain consistent at those things and work at those things, then we get better, so we're better. And when we're better, that's what we get paid for. I said earlier, one of the biggest challenges of entrepreneurship is dealing with our mindset, the thing between our ears, our brain, and the way we think about things. And a lot of the challenges I've had in the past and I've worked through, and I help my mentoring clients work through as well. And even when I was, if you will, life coaching is just believing in ourselves, believing that we have a product, or we have a service called coaching that's valuable enough. That what we're doing is valuable enough for someone to give us money in exchange for us helping them with our coaching. And it's interesting because on the other side of that payment, so to speak, when someone hires us and they actually pay us for it, there's no better reward, because not only now we have a coaching client, we get to do the thing that we want to do in the first place, is help them with the coaching. But also it feels really good because they're paying us for something that we're doing. And I know that's when I say I grew up, especially through high school, like I had really poor self-esteem. When I say I didn't love myself, I wasn't happy with myself. I just didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel I was worthy or deserved anything, success or girls or you name it. I just didn't feel good about myself. And I worked really hard through personal development, inner outer work over the years. But I know that's why I've always gravitated towards entrepreneurship, is because when I started, even in high school, doing things in painting and landscaping, when I got paid for, cutting someone's grass or painting, a house or anything, painting a room, and they paid me money for it, like it felt so good. It means they liked what I did, and it gave me almost like a sense of approval, right? It gave me some self-worth, self-esteem, and oftentimes, rewind a second, I feel like me going into entrepreneurship from cutting grass and painting and things like that, and then into personal training, and then ultimately into coaching, which is where I've come through with my career, if you will, business-wise. It was a nice lead-in because it wasn't like, oh my God, no one's going to hire me to cut their grass, I'm so terrible, right? It was like, I can cut grass. It's really not a hard skill to have, So with that being said, I think I built my way into it. So when it came time for me to, with coaching, I wasn't as, I'm a horrible coach, no one's going to want to hire me, right? But wherever you are in that process with that can be one of our biggest challenges. So what I want to do is I want to teach you to get to that point where you practice the skill sets, and I'll talk about those skill sets in a minute, but the skill sets that I'll talk about, you practice them to the point where they're so natural and they're so much a part of you. Those of you that have been following me through my emails and some of the things that I teach and talk about, especially in the emails, you'll know that we've had some work done in our home, and what was my office is now I'm moving to the back end of the house to a different room. And so yesterday was like the last 2 days was like the big moving days of like switching rooms, right? So my office is now all set up in my new place. I got my new windows. It's beautiful. I'm excited. And so when I was moving stuff around, I was setting up my office yesterday. I wanted to listen to some music. And so I'm like, I'm sick of listening to some new stuff. So I want to listen to some old classic stuff, So I turned on some Pearl Jam, and I don't know if you heard of Pearl Jam or not before, but growing up, especially through college, like Pearl Jam was like the first CD I ever bought was a Pearl Jam CD. So I went on Amazon Music and I pulled out some Pearl Jam stuff, was like the best of, and it's like I turned it on, and there were songs that I haven't heard easily probably in like 20 years, like easily 15 to 20 years or so, since college, some of them. And it was funny because I'm sitting there, the song comes on. There's a point to this, by the way. But there's a song that comes on, and it's like, wow. And it was like, like a favorite song that I haven't heard in so long. And it was like, I didn't miss a beat. I knew every single word like I heard it that morning and had rehearsed it, so many times. Yet I hadn't heard it, or, in 15, 20 years, whatever it was. And of course, in my teaching mind, I'm like, ooh, I got to turn this into something. Because I'm like, I was amazed at not only just my memory, but just everything, like the feelings that were coming up. I was listening to the song. I was amazed at my body. Like I would remember situations that I hadn't thought about or I hadn't felt emotionally in 15, 20 years from college. I remember situation. I remember people. I remember times. And I would not only remember that, I would feel them, and emotions would come up, from past relationships. When you listen to a song with a breakup or something like that. And these are, like I said, these are songs that I haven't heard in forever, but it was like, it was right there. I was living it there. But obviously the reason why I knew the beat, I knew exactly what was coming up. I knew where the grunts were. I knew the subtleties of the breath of the, Eddie Vedder, who was singing it, the Pearl Jam lead singer. Every single beat, every word of the drum, the pauses, the subtleties, every single word. Because I had sang them, I had heard them, thousands of times, back in the day. And so there I can go forward 15 years, hear the song again, and know it like I was, one of the band members. And I was amazed at that. And I bring that up now is because when we talk about some of these skill sets that I'll talk about briefly in just a minute, is I want you to practice them and rehearse them and get them to the point where it's just like that. It's just like a song where it's just like, boom, you cannot hear it in 15 years and do this in 15 years. And maybe there's a word or two you miss here and there or whatever it is. But as soon as you get into it, it's like you're right back where you were. And that's the level I want you to be at. And I want you to give yourself permission, if you're going to beat the odds and went up on that other side, and that other side, I'll call it that 1 to 3%. The 1 to 3%, that's where everyone wants to be. And I remember some old statistics that were not made up statistics, like less than 3% of the population earns a 6-figure income or more. And I think it was less than 1/20th of 1% earns a 7-figure income or more. And I believe that. I think it's real, but if you want to make it to that, less than 3%, less than 1%, even income wise, but just statistically of entrepreneurs who make it in their business and still have a business after 5 years. And then the small percentage of the ones that survive after 5 years still be a part of them in 10 years. Not only we got to adapt and evolve over time because stuff changes, technology changes, society changes. Baby boomers are getting older. As the younger generations are getting older, they're going to become the prime spenders in a short amount of years, if they're not already. I don't know those statistics, but the point is that people are going to be thinking and wanting different things. We've got to adapt. We've got to evolve no matter where we are. But I want you to get good and practice the skill sets that I'll talk about now, and more importantly, I want you to get them to the point where you're so great at what you do, you're in that top, let's say 3%, but you bring that value to that market. And as I tie this into what I was saying earlier, as an entrepreneur, is we get paid for the value we bring to the marketplace. So as I said, with a self-esteem piece and our mindset piece, is that we got to get better so we become more valuable. And entrepreneurship, like I said, that's the difference between that and a job. Is with a job, you get paid for the job's worth, and if you want to get paid to be an X, professional in this profession, there's a certain salary that's associated with that, right? So you get paid for the job. It doesn't matter how valuable you are, but as an entrepreneur, the more valuable you become, the more you can charge because you have more specialties, you have more expertise. And people value that more, and therefore that can command more money. And that's where this work comes in. And so what do we actually work on to actually get you there to become more valuable so you can beat the odds? And some of the skill sets I'll say is, and this should be no surprise to you if you follow me, is that selling skill set. And the selling skill set, and that's why I do what I do with my business of selling coaching and helping coaches transition to full-time, is the aspect of understanding sales and selling. And this isn't where I'm going to go into that right now in terms of the depth of it, but I'll reiterate that point of understanding that skill set so you're comfortable with it. Like I want it to become so comfortable when you create a conversation with somebody, when they come up to you after the event and they say, hey, tell me more about your coaching, or what do you do? Or, I'm interested in learning a little bit more about what you offer. Or most of the time, they don't even say that stuff, but it's starting a conversation with somebody. And then how do we take that conversation and how do we get it to the point where we understand what their needs are? And when we find out someone, oh my God, wow, they could be a perfect candidate for my coaching, right? We've had those, if you've done this long enough, or even you're starting off, and you'll talk to people and you're sitting there thinking like, oh my God, this person would so benefit if I could coach them, right? How do we then take that conversation where we create an approach where we ask if they would be open to taking a closer look at how we could help them if they were to hire us as our coach? Even me saying that phrase, it's so rote. It's like that song. I could listen to it and just in 30 years from now, I could say that same phrase over and over again. Would you be interested in taking a closer look at how I could help you if you were to hire me as your coach? And it's like those things, those are the aspects of that art of selling, that skill set of selling that I want you to begin to master. But I want you to remember is it's like you're in that phase where, according to this metaphor of this song, is that you're listening to the song for the first time and you don't even like it yet. right? You don't even like the song. And it's, in other words, some people don't like selling. They're scared of selling. They have a bad impression of selling from, everything in the past, their associations with selling and being that used car salesman, as people like to say, or the person who calls you, the telemarketer that's just like, no, you're walking into Home Depot and the person's selling siding or windows and you're like, I don't want siding or windows, and it's like, we don't want to be that person. But it's how do we don't want to get good at, we don't even want to look at this, but I'm saying you've got to look at this, right? So it's that song that you don't even like, or you don't even want to get good at it, but how do you get it? You got to listen to it over and over again, and you got to start to love it. And then you got to start to practice, and you've got to hone it, and you've got to hone it over years. And that's what I'm saying there is, so I'm not going to go into the art of selling and the actual skill set, but I'm just talking about that. That's where you can go to my university at sellingcoaching.com and start listening to, type in selling, type in, the sales conversation, type in things like that, and start listening to some of those calls where I talk about that, qualifying, pre-qualifying people, right? That's a place that's the most valuable things you'll ever learn in this business. And if you're going to make it to that 3% or that top 1% of the population and still have a business and beat the odds, you've got to get good at that selling skill set. And I'm telling you that's an absolute, unequivocal absolute. And if there's an entrepreneur out there that thinks that they're not good at selling, I bet you if we analyzed and looked at, what they do on a daily basis, we'd go like, you know what? They sell and they're great at selling. They might not think they're great at that skill set. Rewind back to my days as a personal trainer when I had my own business. I had my own business within health clubs. I had my own business outside of health clubs, doing groups, doing one-on-one. And I never thought I sold. I didn't even think of selling. I never took a course on selling. If someone said like, well, you're a salesman, I would be like, no, I'm not. I'm a personal trainer. But, fast forward, and I started looking at that, and I would look back at what I was doing as a personal trainer. I'm like, oh my God, I was selling. When I started realizing that, and this was at the tail end of my my personal training career, my health and fitness career, as I was into coaching as well, as I started that, I was like, oh my God, like, that's exactly what I was doing. And I had a system, and I didn't realize I had a system, and the language I was using and my approach, and it was my own unique approach I just figured out. And I'll call it a natural salesperson or not. I don't think it was natural, but it's just what I did. And so then what was happening is I started to understand what I was doing. So I was consciously competent about it. And that's when I became dangerous in the sense where I'm like, ooh, now I can do this on demand. And I understand what I'm doing. So I could even improve it and get better at it. And so what I'm saying is that's an undeniable thing that's going to allow you to beat the odds and get you there, is understanding that the art of selling, and honing that craft. And I shared that story about that song when I was listening to it because I wanted to get to that point where it's that comfortable. Like, that song was a part of me, and it didn't, like an old friend, like if you haven't seen someone in years that you grew up with or whatever, and it's like, you haven't seen them in 30 years or whatever it is, a very long time, and you get together and it's like they're a part of your life and you've never missed a day, other than what went on in between there, and you feel so comfortable with them. That's the level of comfort I need you, not I want you, I want you to, but I need you to get there if you're going to beat the odds with that selling piece, And then if we extend on from there, I just want you to start to look at, you got to start to look at some of the things you can control and work on and focus on versus the things that you can't control with it, we can't control when we're going to get our next lead or who's interested. We can't control when we're going to get our next client. That can be the tough part about this business or business in general is we don't know where those people are coming from. Like, yeah, I've got some people I'm talking to right now, but I'm like, I don't know where my next client is coming from yet. I could have a brand new client tomorrow. Right? That happened to me last week. I said the same thing. I don't know where my next client's coming from. Next thing you know, had a conversation with someone, carried it on, created an approach. It was perfect. They ended up having a call with me the next day, and next thing you know, they hired me as their mentor coach. So I don't know, it could be someone on this call. It could be someone that listens to the recording of this, or an email that comes in today. So that's why we got to stay in the game long enough, but we can't control those things. And when we worry about that and we're concerned about that, especially those of you that have a job and you've got an income from the job, whether you absolutely love the job but you want to get out of it at some point, or you can't work another day because it's killing you, it's providing an income for you, right? But oftentimes when we're in that situation and we don't have a transition fund, or we're trying to build one and it's hard to create that, that the need of, oh, I need to know where my next client's coming from. Sometimes that can be a really challenging spot for somebody. What I'm saying here is that, we know we can't predict those things, and that just causes worry and anxiety. Trust me, I've been there before many times. The only solution for worry and anxiety is trust. You've got to be able to trust the process, but also you've got to be able to trust yourself and the skill you lean back on. The only reason why I can sleep at night, and I'm being straight with you right now, like I always am, but the only reason why I can sleep at night as an entrepreneur is because I trust myself and my ability. That's a bottom line. That's if you're going to take away anything from this for yourself, is not, that's why Jeff can sleep, but that's how you can start to get to sleep and beat that anxiety, if you will, overcome that and that worry. As Eckhart Tolle says, there's a great book, The Power of Now, and he says, worrying is suffering in advance. Stuff hasn't even happened yet, right? But yet we're worrying and we're suffering about it now, and it may or may not happen, but the only reason I can sleep at night is because I trust myself and my ability, and that ability that I trust is the skill set that I learned of selling. And that's something I carry with me. And I know I'm hammering this home, and I'm being somewhat repetitive on this topic right now, but I really want to hammer that and how it all ties into you getting through that. And so, in other words, that's looking at you can't control those things. So what can you control? It's controlling what you're focusing on each and every day. And that's why, in some of the fundamentals of what we're doing, we've got to create some baseline structure within our business where we know who we're going after, but then we're staying in front of them on a weekly basis. My two mentoring clients that I had before the live call today, one of them's moving overseas, moving from in the U.S. They lived there their whole life, and they're moving to Italy. His wife got a great job, and so forth and so on. So they're moving there, and they're heading over there, on Sunday, and they're going to have a little preliminary time and then come back and then make the final move in October. Man, this guy's like, what he's going through to do all this stuff, and yet he's grown his coaching business right now, and he quit his job, and he's doing this full time. He's definitely not earning a full time income, but the stuff that he's consumed with right now with this overseas moves, as you can imagine, if you've moved across town or down the road, it's a lot. Never mind overseas, right? But he's got the structure that he has, and he's sticking to the structure. And there's some things that he's focusing on in terms of staying in front of his audience, sending his emails every week, doing his weekly event, like my live Tuesday call, right? That's what I help my clients with. I set that structure up for a weekly event. So at a bare minimum, you can stay in front of that stuff, right? Those are the things that you can control no matter what's going on. It's like, well, I can send an email out today. I can do my live event. Like he's got a Facebook Live. I'm using this as an example, meaning I don't care if you're flying across seas or, you don't have internet or something like that. You can find a spot where you can do it on your phone, and you can pivot the day that you do it on. Heck, you could do it from the plane if you really wanted to, because you could get internet connection on a plane right now. And you could do your Facebook Live from the plane if you needed to, or from the airport, right? So you can send an email from anywhere in the world. As long as you've got your phone, you don't even need, internet connection, because you can use your cellular data to send an email or something like that, right? So the point is those are things that you can control. Those are things that you can do no matter what's going on in your life that involve a minimal amount of time, is staying in front of your audience. Obviously you got to get to that point, right? There are things that you can do is working on that skill set of selling. I've got plenty of free stuff out there in terms of going to my Selling Coaching University around that stuff, so you can listen to it repetitively. Doesn't mean you have to hire me as your mentor coach necessarily. Maybe the time is not right for that stuff, but that's why I do these calls, and that's why I put them out there for free. And I also try and give as much valuable and detailed information as possible versus just a vague thing that just gets you to, and here's some vague general stuff to tease you, and buy my course and it'll give you all the detailed stuff. Is because I want you to listen to that stuff repetitively, so you can start working and honing that craft. Some of the other skill sets that I want you to start practicing on that you can control is, when I say networking, it's not like, just talking to people or anything, but it's just start having conversations with people. Start having conversations with people where you inquire about what's going on in their world and digging a little bit deeper. It's actually called coaching. The thing I love about the art of the skill set of selling and the art of coaching is it's very, very closely, how about this? I'll call it coaching's brother, right? It's the skill set of coaching, but it's the brother. Meaning it's like, it's all it is coaching. If I were to summarize coaching, and obviously that's a skill set you want to hone and practicing it better at because you'll have more confidence in it. But all I could consider coaching is just being objective, not judgmental with somebody, and listening and asking open questions. That's it. So it's doing that from a non-judgmental place. But that's in a summary, in a 2-second summary, it's asking great questions and then genuinely listening to that from a detached point of view, meaning objective. That's it. All selling is it's asking questions and listening from a detached point of view. And the only caveat to that, and this makes it its brother, right? Meaning even if it's an identical twin, there's still some unique attributes about the identical twin that make it different. The only difference is that when we listen through that, if you will, detached framework, the only agenda we have is knowing that we have a service that we offer called coaching that helps people tremendously. Whereas if we start to hear a need that this person has that we know we could help them with, then it's our obligation to now ask a question where to find out how important is it that you do something about that need right now? And if it's like they're looking to do something about that need right now, then that becomes now our obligation to be able to ask. And this is where I would say make an approach. And I guess this is the skill set of selling. I'm kind of laying out a little bit for you here. As we say, is like, that's where I bring in that phrase I said before is, well, I can't help but hear you wanting to go after X and the timing sounds like it couldn't be better. I can't help but ask if you'd ever take a closer look at how I could help you if you were to hire me as your coach, right? Boom. That's it all in a nutshell, right? So the coaching skill set that's a skill set we want to practice and get better at. Really, the only way we do that is by coaching with people. So therefore, in order to coach with people, we could do it for free, but sometimes doing it for free doesn't really work because it's not in a most genuine scenario. If we're giving it away, someone might just agree to it versus when they pay for it, it's different. They're all in, right? They're really going through something and they value what you're doing when they're paying for something, right? The only way we're to get to practice coaching is actually by getting better at the skill set of selling, right? And laying that out and doing that on a repetitive basis so that we can, we get it to like that song, that Pearl Jam song that I was saying, right? And we get it to that point we practice it. But then it's the things along the way that we can work on to get there of, like I said, those skill sets there, practicing it, but also, the fundamentals in our business of, getting that email audience set up so we can stay in front of those people, even if it's just friends and family right now, and emailing them on a weekly basis, having some type of a live event. Like I said, starting that networking conversation that leads into what I just talked about there, where we can start to find out about some potential needs that these people have and the timing of those needs. And even if you're not comfortable quite with the approach from there, like I said, then that's starting to transition it from just, let's say, the coaching skill set in a networking conversation, or just even with your friends and family, like yesterday was a holiday. It's just start talk to people and find out about those needs. That's stuff you can control and start practicing. Maybe you're not comfortable yet to make a transition where we make an approach yet, but at least start practicing having those conversations. Putting yourself in, and I'll use the word forcing, even though I don't like the word necessarily, but you've got to, as an entrepreneur, we've got to force ourselves into situations where we're uncomfortable, because that forces us, it highlights our insecurities. It highlights our beliefs that limit us. It highlights all the things, if you will, that we're not good at. And those are the things that we need to do as an entrepreneur to identify more appropriately, where do I need the most help with? Like as a personal trainer, as I said, with whether it was an athlete I was working with, or if you will, just an everyday person, I had to put them in situations that would highlight their weaknesses. Maybe they've got weak lower back or weak hip flexors, or an muscular imbalance due to an injury or whatever it is, right? And oftentimes when we would train and push them hard, those weaknesses, right, they would show up. But it wasn't until those weaknesses showed up that we were able to identify. It's like, wow, we need to work on your hip strength, or we need to work on your mobility because it's limiting this, and therefore we can't go to where we need to go or want to go, right? So we're able to work on those things, and now we work on your mobility. Great, now we can actually get stronger so you can do the things that you want to do in the first place, right? So same thing is here, is we've got to push you to those places that where you're the most uncomfortable, so we know where the weaknesses are, so we can begin working on those things as well. And that's another way you can leverage my university that I have there, or of course myself in other ways as well, is when you start pushing yourself, then you can start finding those areas, and that's where you can say, oh, now type those areas into my university or somewhere else for that matter, if you've got some other great resources. And then you can start listening to some of the calls or some information, or work with, myself or a mentor coach on those specific things. Find someone who specializes in that area, if you will. And that's where you can start honing those things. And the last thing I'll say to kind of wrap this up, to beat the odds is you've got to give it time. You've got to give yourself time. And this shouldn't be a new concept I'm sharing with you right now, but it's a concept we need to be reminded of and be mindful of. Is I always give that window of that 18 to 24 months. If you're transitioning to full time, there's definitely that 18 to 24 month window where that's in that time frame we can really get everything moving and get going, and we should have a decent sized audience at that point where we should have some consistency of income, and we should be able to know enough about our marketing engine that'll help you set up and what you're getting from that statistically, where we should have some predictability, not in terms of what we will get from potential leads, and then some predictability and income from there, which then, especially if you're transitioning, we should be able to be at a transition point or know more accurately when we can maybe get out of your job and go from there, right? But there's that 18 to 24 months. That doesn't mean that you've made it, because it's never ending, right? It's just a process of, it's going to go on forever. Hopefully you want to do this business forever. But just like working out, if I'm taking that parallel here, as I was talking about my fitness career in those days, is if you got to lose some weight or you get fitter for whatever, if you get a specific objective, well, once you lose the weight or achieve the goal, it doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep going, right? Because there's new challenges along the way, and there's new goals that come along with that, right? And it's just as if you needed to lose some weight, or I like to say release some weight. Yeah, we want to happen now, just like if we want to earn a six-figure income, enough to replace a salary or whatever. Yeah, we want it to happen now, but it's not going to happen now, and nor should there be a rush for it to happen now. So just like the 20 pounds you need to lose or whatever, it's like, well, if we're going to be doing this forever, what's the rush? Yeah, we want it to happen now, but knowing it can't happen now, and it's most likely going to be slower than you want it to be, right? It's like, let's just do it like we're doing it for the long run. And then you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be more than 20 pounds down, and you're going to go after your next goal. So it's just like, yeah, we want to earn the income now, but it's like, there's no rush for us. Let's take it day by day, deal with life along the way, focus on the things we can control. And next thing you know, you're going to be there. And yeah, it's probably going to be longer than you thought it would be, right? But who cares? We're doing this for the long run. That's my whole point is with those metaphors, is to share that. But this is the final thought here is what can we control with everything is our mind. And I say one of the most challenging things, I'll pull this full circle and go back to the beginning, is I say one of the most challenging aspects of entrepreneurship and everything else on top of all the odds is our mindset and the way we think. But now I'll close it and say the greatest part of it all is we have unequivocally an absolute mastery, control over the way we think. We can have times where it goes out of control and it has a mind of its own, right? Old patterns, old beliefs, habits, old thoughts that come up that, let's say, feel like we don't have control over it. But that's just because we haven't taken a deep breath, centered ourselves, brought us back to the present, meaning if we feel like we're out of control, it means we're either in the past or the future. We're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, or we're fearful or hesitant or worrying about something that's happened in the past, and we're worried that's going to happen now, right? In the present, there's no fear. There's only trust. That's what being is. As a human being, we're in the present. So we take a deep breath. We center ourselves. We're in the present. That's when we can trust and be there, and that's when we can focus on and have a complete mastery and control of our mind. And we can ask ourselves questions. That's the whole point of coaching. We can ask ourselves questions that can dictate a conscious thought and a conscious answer of where we can go. And then we can create a solid plan from there and then take action on it. And that's the best part about this whole thing, is we have complete mastery and control over our mindset and our thoughts. And then with the mind-body connection is the way we think dictates the way we feel. Also, the way we feel dictates the way we think. That's why it's important to have the health and take care of our body as well. But wherever part of that mind-body connection or that back and flow cycle, if you will, we can always come back to that conscious thought. And that's what I want to leave you with, is know that no matter what's going on, you can always pull yourself back to that present, master your thoughts, and then create a specific action plan from there. And that's where you can get back to going to some of the things that I talked about to work on. And you do that day by day over years, you're going to be exactly in that top 3%.